Live.
Me.
Okay.
Say the part about him breaking the conference.
So if you guys are watching the replay now, I want you guys to know that Ryan Wakefield, thanks for clearing that up, bro.
I got you.
So like, do we become best friends? So like literally we just got back from Dallas and we were hanging out, and Wakefield did a breakout session at the conference, and he broke the breakout. There's only 150 people that were allowed in that thing. They should have given him the massive auditorium that's at 2,500, because he probably would have had everybody put up and sold it out. We had over 200 people in the 150 person room, people all lined up on the back. He was like, hey, if you want to have some questions, just text this number, crash the app, because he had so many questions, because people were freaking out, because it's like, oh my gosh, it's Ryan Wakefield. Like we can talk to this guy. So what I did was I bribed Ryan into coming back to my house and hopping on this coaching call here, because he said some things that, I'm not kidding, literally melted my face off. Like we almost got I-35 because I was like, dude, shut up. And I was hitting him because I was so excited about the stuff that he was talking about. And so I thought, let's just get him on the coaching call talking about it. So a little bit unorthodox, a little bit different than what we normally do every single week. But I wanted Ryan to talk about this church growth discovery that he found with his team, or whatever, that I don't think anyone is talking about. I'm about to like just go meet with my entire staff at the church and change a ton of stuff based on a conversation I had with Ryan on the way down. So I wanted him to kind of share that with you guys, because I think it's, we're still going to do some Q&A. So if you guys have questions, write them down. But I wanted Ryan to share for the next, 10 or 15 minutes here. And feel free to interject if you guys have questions. But on this kind of new discovery that I think could literally change the world.
Yeah. And hello, guys. Full disclosure, Chris and I have been in a car together now for like 8 hours down to Dallas and back.
Yeah.
We're fully caffeinated and we're a little bit crazy. Okay. So like we got two marketing guys in a Jeep, and we're like just talking the whole way down. And what's awesome is like what Chris and you guys are experiencing through like the Facebook ministry ads is so, like I told Chris, I'm like, you're like 10 years ahead of like the church world. And like, it's so exciting to hear. And it's so exciting to see churches utilizing Facebook ads. Yes, to invite people to church, that's awesome. But to do ministry and to reach in to like our communities that are hurting, and you guys know this, like once you turn on, like if you're doing the prayer ads, like it's like, oh my word, like I knew there was hurt in our community. Like to feel that and to enter into that and to be a blessing in that way, and then develop relationships with people and go on that journey is incredible. So I love the fact that this guy and the team is just thinking about how to do that from such a healthy perspective. So it's cool to hear, and I'm just blown away. And the same thing, what's cool is just being in person, you get all these pastors that are coming up to you and either they're in your guys' program, they're in ours, or they're in both. And they're like, man, our church is going from like 600 to 800. I'm like, you're just now telling me that? Like, you're just now like, what's going on? Like, yeah, it's not like, and like, okay, cool. Like, and like, just people that are so excited that, that have been in it for the long game. Like some of them like started 3 years ago and just seeing what God has done. So just want to give a huge shout out to Chris and his team for all that they do to help the church world. So real quick, let's unpack like the big thing that we want to talk about, because what we've done is we've always tried to look at churches and try to figure out, outside of keeping the main things, we're going to focus on Jesus. We're going to preach the word. We're going to share the gospel. We're not talking about doing anything outside of why we got in the ministry in the first place, to see lives transformed, to make heaven more crowded. Like, we're going to keep the main things, but we also want to take a look at, okay, if that is our hope, what are growing churches doing that plateaued or declining churches aren't doing? Like, are there some strategic things? Because here's kind of my understanding of this is like, we can be connected with God. We can have a heart after our community. We can be passionate, and then we can still be missing some things. And I would use Moses as an example. We all know Moses. You guys are all pastors. You guys know the influence that he had throughout the Bible, throughout our faith. You know that the Bible describes Moses as, he talked to God like we talk to a friend type deal. Like Moses was the man. And we also know that there are times, like, even if you're the man or the woman, like, you are missing the mark on some things. And it took God sending Jethro to come say, hey, Moses, some of the things you're doing are like incredibly stupid. Like, you need to go do this. So like, he was connected with God. He was passionate. He was trying to help people, trying to do the best, but like, he needed somebody to come along and say, hey, have you thought about doing it this way? Like, oh, okay. So all that to say, we're not changing the main things. We're keeping those the same thing, but we're saying, okay, are there some things that we can say, oh, what if we just tweak this? What if we changed our mindset around this? And so we did an assessment and we studied a couple thousand churches, and we wanted to see, okay, what are those churches that are growing? What are they doing that if you're plateaued or not growing, like they're typically not doing? And so we found, out of this assessment, we found 7 things. And we don't have time to unpack all 7. We're actually just going to really focus on one, the main one, like the biggest thing. This was like the blinking lights, like, hey, pay attention to this. When I got my master's in organizational leadership, there was one class I had to take on statistics. So I don't know why. I can't tell you much about what I learned in that particular class, but I do know, like, when you do a study, there's a statistical correlation that once you get over a certain factor, it becomes scientifically significant. And then, like, that number, the higher it goes, the more significant that data point becomes. So this was the most statistically significant point out of all the data. This was the biggest thing. And let me give you kind of how this breaks down based on category of church. So if a church was declining, those churches said this aspect is true 38% of the time. And I'm going to tell you what the aspect is, but I just want to set the stage so you can see, like, how big it was in the data. If a church was growing, they said this is true of our church 68% of the time. And then if a church was in this kind of category of, like, man, they're just experiencing rapid growth, 88% of the time they said this is true of our church. So again, like, data point was like screaming at us. And here was the finding. Is that growing churches are led by leaders that prioritize reaching the next generation. Growing churches are led by leaders that prioritize reaching the next generation. And in the study wasn't designed to, like, okay, well, why is that? Like, I think we're all pastors. We probably all heard about, like, the 414 window. We all know the impact of kids ministry. And we all know some of those things, but I think sometimes in our leading our churches, we sometimes forget that. And this is what this study brought me back to, is like, oh my word, look at this. Like, if your church, it can say our leadership prioritizes reaching the next generation, statistically, you are way, 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 way more likely to be a growing church. Like, just it's the statistical differentiation is huge. And so Chris and I, on the way down to Dallas, we're talking about this and unpacking this, and like, okay, what does this look like? And then we started to look at churches, like, okay, what churches do we know or grow up in or see in our communities? Like, this was true of them. Like, they went all in on reaching young, like students and kids and young families. Like, in all of them that we could think of are like, oh my word, these are the churches that are just like, they have people everywhere. Like, they're busting at the seams. Like, and like, we're like, man, there's something here. And it's also my thought process is when a church will prioritize reaching young, it causes leadership to think about church in different ways. Again, not abandoning the main things, but think about church like, okay, if we're going to reach young people, like, we got to be willing to take risks. We got to be willing to change some things up. We've got to be willing to look at what we're doing and say, hey, are people understanding what we're doing? We got to be able to kind of shift or use new tools, or we've got to, like, we got to be aggressive about doing this or that. It causes us leadership when the priority is on reaching young. And I had a pastor friend describe it this way, and he was encouraging pastors, like, we got to start thinking more like missionaries and less like pastors, especially as our culture shifts farther and farther away of church being the normal default life pattern. We got to start thinking, okay, we got to look at this more like a missionary than we do a pastor. And I think this really ties into that idea of, if your church is committed to reaching young, what happens is it forces you to think like a missionary, because you guys know the next generation coming up and millennials and their kids, they're weird. They're different. They have different perspectives. Like, they're a crazy bunch. And you're like, they don't maybe believe in God by default. They didn't maybe grow up. And so now we got to think like, okay, how is our church becoming a missionary to that culture? And when we start thinking like missionaries, now it starts forcing us to be able to take risks and to change some things and not be stuck in our ways. And so I think that's one of the reasons. That's my thought of why is this such a big indicator, is because I think when a church will do this, it just helps us lead in such a way that we're constantly thinking about our community. How do we try new things? How do we reach into our community? And it forces us to think like a missionary, to which a lot of churches will then say, like, okay, I get that. I love that. How does that look? What does that look like? How does that flesh out?
Yeah.
And I think it means this. I think it means, from a leadership perspective, like when you think through what you're doing, like, who are the greeters at your door? Who are the people on your stage? Who are the people on your worship team? Who are the people in your board? Who are the people that are on your speaking team? And are the younger generation represented in that? If not, man, I think we need to maybe hit pause and be like, how do we get young people in our highly visible areas, in leadership, in the worship area, in the teaching, and not compromise on theology. We're not going to compromise on quality. We're not going to, we're not just putting people to be there, but we are intentionally raising up people to be in strategic parts of leadership, so that our culture naturally bends, our church culture naturally bends to reaching young. So I think there's, from a leadership perspective, there's that. I think from when it comes to marketing and communications, prioritizing reaching young, influencing what we're going to do, who we're trying to target, who we're trying to go after. I think it is really that. Amen. I hear that. So, and I think it also means this. I think it means looking at some of what we're doing different, because I think we slip into this, if we're not careful, we slip into this perspective that we say mentally, oh yeah, we're all about kids and youth. But what we do practically is the farthest thing from that. And here's what I mean. Like, all of our, raise a hand here if you guys do streaming on Facebook, YouTube, a live stream? Raise a hand if you do that, okay? Now raise a hand if you do live streaming of your kids' service. Okay, so and that's what I would say, like as a church world, like when we think about programs and ministries and what we're doing, especially when it comes digitally, like our default is for adults. And like, I'm like, okay, that's good. Like, I don't have anything opposed to that, but where are all the local churches creating digital experiences for kids, live experiences for kids? Like, our kids and our young people are the ones that are spending all day like this, and the local church is just absent conversation. So I'm leading a crusade. Like, I don't even know, like, it's not my area specialty, but I want to lead the charge of saying, man, what if local churches all around the world said, we're not going to stand for that. Like, let's go all in and creating experiences for kids. Let's raise up a generation of junior high YouTubers that have hundreds of thousands of subscribers, and they're the ones that are sharing the gospel through YouTube. Like, we don't need to push everybody to the church YouTube account. Let's like teach our youth how to be like YouTubers, and empower them to share the gospel and go crazy that way. So there's all these things, like the live streaming as an experience, but you just keep going down the road. Let me ask you this. How many of you guys will do like a Vision Sunday at your church? That's kind of popular deal. We did that at James River. We've done that at Summit Park Church. So wave at me real quick if you do kind of a Vision Sunday. Let me ask you this. Again, I don't want you, I'm saying this not to make people feel bad as much as, do we need a mindset shift here? How many of you guys included like a version of that in the kids area or in the student area? Like, they had a vision. Awesome. Like, that's awesome.
Wow. I thought it'd be zero. That's I'm super impressed right now.
Me too. So like,
Josh and Aaron crushing it.
If we're not careful, what we do is we say like, the kids and the youth are the church, but when it comes to all the things that is the church, it's like they're not a part of Vision. They're not a part of our live stream. We don't do content for them. And so we could keep going kind of down the line of like, if you're the lead pastor, do you think I am also the lead pastor of kids and students? Or do you think mentally, without really knowing, oh, like we kind of hired a coordinator for that? Like when's the last time as the lead pastor, you were in the kids area? So like you were just getting a passion for that. Like, what's going on? Like, if this is the most important thing, like, do you have a leadership presence there? Are they on your heart? Do you consider them as much a part of as the church? Chris and I were just talking like a mindset shift. Like, it's a cute saying to say, kids and youth are the future of the church. And I'm saying, no, that's wrong. Kids and youth are the church. Like, and as leaders, we have to think through, like, how do we lead in such a way that we almost start flipping the script of, not that they're the future of the church, they're the church now. And like, how do we think kids and youth first? So let me give you another example. Who all has done a planning meeting for Easter yet? Like, you've already kind of got together and planned what you're going to be doing for Easter. Raise your hand. Okay, again, same question. Who all started that planning meeting by thinking about the kids and youth first? Like, how are we going to go crazy? Okay. So you guys, well, I should have known your crew is like, your crew is way more advanced than most, but, and not saying like that's the end all be all. I'm just saying practically we would say, oh yeah, that's true. We do that. But then we start looking at what we're doing day to day, our planning and programmatically, where we're putting our budget, what we're doing on digital and what we're investing in, what we're getting creative with, and what we kind of mentally consumes our leadership time and energy in our mind. And if you keep going down the list, just make sure kids and youth aren't becoming their own separate deal. Like just say, man, churches that are growing, they're led by leaders that for whatever reason, the main characteristic is they're almost consumed with that first. And then, and when they are, like what you just experience is just, it appears from the data is like, man, that is a key indicator in growth.
That's huge.
There it is.
Bro, that's so we've been talking about this a lot, and I'm telling you, like, I got convicted because like he has a slide. He did a whole presentation on this at the conference. Is there a way that people can get that slide?
Yeah,
those slides.
Yeah, I could give it to you and you can share it. Yep,
okay,
absolutely.
Cool. So that'd be awesome. Because I'm telling you, like he crushed it. Not only did he break the breakout and get 200 people in a 150 person room, but he literally just delivered us and kind of going through that. One of the things he did, he had a slide that shows that most churches, the way they do it, right, is you basically have like your adults and all the grownups are kind of like in the center, right? Like, man, like there it is like that. And then like kids and youth are kind of on the sides, right? Like everything's like focused on the adults and kids and youth kind of pushed to the side. But he said, man, go out into your community and go to a football game, go to a baseball game, go to any type of event. And it's reversed, right? It's actually like the kids are on the court and the parents are sitting on the side, right? Like everything, like in your community, everyone prioritizes the kids first, the parents are on the side. And yet in church, we prioritize the grownups first, and then the kids are pushed to the side. And like these growing churches that he's talking about, if we can reverse that and we can actually put make the kids I guess the main point, right? Like the first thing we're thinking about, and then the kid and the grownups become the afterthought, right? The same way that he just brought up a great example on our last live that we were doing in the church marketers group, which if you're not in that, you guys should definitely jump in the church marketers group. Ryan goes live all the time and just drops not gold nuggets, but gold bricks. It's awesome. But he was literally talking about how, like it used to be when you first designed a website, you designed for desktop, right? Like, are people going to see this on their desktop or their laptop? But now it's changed, right? Over 70% of website traffic now comes from mobile. So you actually have to design with a mobile first mindset, and then you think about desktop. And I'm saying that's what we need to do too. Now everything has kind of flipped, and we need to think about kids first and then adults, right? Because how many of you guys have had people in your church where the family is left because the kids don't like the church, right? They don't like kids ministry or they don't like the youth group, and so they end up leaving, even though they're plugged in and they love it and you've poured into that family. They end up leaving. We've happened too many times to count. So like key leaders that have come to the church for 10 years plus will leave because their kids don't like the kids ministry or the youth group, right? But how many of you guys have also have key families that come in where like maybe like a teenager started attending the youth group, got sucked in and planted, and then brought his whole family with him, right? Or kids started coming. Like we had people all the time. It's like, oh, well, we were going to go to this church, or we tried this out. We didn't love it the first time we came, but our kids got plugged in here. And now we've been coming here for 5 years, right? And so I think it's because if we focus on, it's basically 3 rules. We talk about this in here. Get the kids, get the kids, get the kids. Okay. If you follow those 3 rules, that church growth, I think can absolutely blow up. And so, Wakefield, thanks for, go ahead.
One last analogy where we can do a kind of participation here real quick is when I was in 2nd grade, that was the first year where the elementary school got a computer lab. That computer lab was graciously donated, I think, or granted by our friends over at Macintosh Computer. It was the Apple II GS is what it was. We had Oregon Trail that we played with the 5.5-inch floppy disk.
You got dysentery and died. That's all I remember from Oregon Trail.
That's all we did. So, and what I didn't realize at the time is part of Apple's strategy is they could see down the road, and they could see that one day we will all have personal computers, and we will all have. So if you have an Apple device, raise your hand or show me your device. If you have an Apple device. So they knew down the road that this was the future. Now they didn't know exactly what that looked like, but they also knew if we can start giving grants to elementary schools, kids, an entire generation will grow up with our product, familiar with our product, right? So like they had the foresight to know if we can get the kids, we can change culture.
Yeah.
We can transform the world if we can start them at a young age and get them hooked. I mean, and Apple is just an incredible brand when it comes to marketing, and just like, man, if they get you hooked on this, they get you to buy your computer, they get you, like it just go, they're geniuses at that stuff. So
well, they were thinking that in the 80s. Right now, you and I both have iPhones, right? Like we're on Wakefield's computer right now, which is a Mac. I have mine plugged in right next to it, which is also a Mac, right? So you wonder like, oh, did that work? Giving away computers to computer labs? I don't know. You tell me. Everything I own is Apple, right? Like everything that he has is Apple. It's just like, I don't know. Maybe it worked, right? They were thinking about this in the 80s. Now you fast forward to 2020, right? So if we want to change the world, it's not thinking, okay, well, yeah, like it's really easy to think, well, kids and youth, they're the future of the church. But we have to stop thinking that way, because what it does is it actually allows you to basically put it on the back burner and put it on the shelf and say, okay, cool, we're going to reach them, we're going to get better. It's like, no, kids and youth are the church. So how do we make an immediate impact right now?
Love it.
All right, I know we've only got a few minutes here. So we'll have to do this again. We'll bring you back on and do some more here. But let's talk about Facebook ministry ads. We've only got a few minutes here, but I want to make sure we do some Q&A and kind of answer some questions. I don't know if Justin was still on here, but Justin shot me a text yesterday that like we were literally at the conference in the middle of a session, and he's like, "Dude, our ads just started yesterday on Monday. We've already prayed for 15 people and had 2 plan your visits in the first 24 hours." So, man, super pumped. Justin's crushing it. I know a lot of you guys have similar stories. So, does anybody have a testimonial or a story or a question?
Sorry, I unmuted Justin's mic.
It's okay. I'm still here.
Justin,
yeah,
what's up, bro?
What's up, man?
Dude, Ryan, Chris, you guys are killing it, bro. No, man, I was just in the ministry Facebook
It's hard to hear you.
Yeah, I'm having trouble.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Yeah. There we
go. Lean in.
We had like 21 prayers already, and then, dude, probably 3 or 4 ready to visits. The only thing I can't figure out is when a couple say we don't have transportation. I'm like, well, I just want to go pick you up. But I know I can.
Yeah. So, well, and I don't know if Will's still on here. Will's done that. Like he's gone through and either he personally went and picked some people up, or he had some people in his church kind of arrange for rides. Right. But one of the things that we've done quite a bit, and I found this to be really, really effective, is literally just asking them, like, oh man, sorry you don't have a ride. Man, do you know someone that has a car that could give you a ride? Right? Like, and just ask me. And it's funny, most people don't think that, but if you ask them, almost every single time people are like, well, yeah. It's like, okay, great. Well, see if they can give you a ride this Sunday, right? Bring them to church. Maybe we'll save you guys some seats. We'll get you some coffee. So I think you're saying that's front. Yeah.
That's a good point.
Oh, yeah.
Or do I need to answer the front door?
No. Okay. Do it.
Okay. So I worked with a local pregnancy care center, and I'd say about 7 years ago, we had this brilliant idea. We created a mobile unit. So the idea was how to take the services all across the city in a mobile fashion for that very reason, people not having transportation. We raised like hundreds of thousands of dollars to fund this thing and to operate it. And then a couple of years into it, like Uber came along. And we're like, oh my gosh, it is so much more inexpensive not to run this thing, but just to reimburse people if they need to Uber into one of our locations. Wow. And so it's just like, we don't have to maintain the unit. We don't hey, so I don't know if that would help anybody, but just having a program where like, hey, if you can do X amount, if you can Uber here, we'll reimburse you type deal. Like, I don't know, like you'd have to think through that, but with the invention of those type of apps, like transportation can be a much easier thing to solve. So just throwing that out there.
Love it. And there's probably some people in your church too, that if you threw that out there and just, hey, we're reaching a lot of people that want to come visit, but they don't have rides. So man, if the Lord puts it on your heart, maybe, donate some money, and all of that money will go straight to just buying Uber rides for people that want to come visit church and people that are far from God. And you might have some people who go throw down some money on that and actually sponsor the Uber ride, so it doesn't even have to come out of the church budget.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. That was awesome.
Very cool.
Do we want to talk about mini chat and the 24-hour rule?
Oh yeah. So we get this question every single week for the last 3 months. So we try to cover it every single week, right? It's basically what happens is Many Chat said March 4th, which is today. Anyone that goes outside of the 24-hour window isn't going to get any of your messages. Like it's your follow-up messages, like the Saturday invites that go out, like the 30-day follow-ups, that kind of stuff, right? So most of you guys have reached out and we've either fixed it for you, or you guys went in, you tag your flows as you just have to tag those two flows. And I think it was not community alert. What do we call it, Caleb? It was a confirmed event update, right? So basically, like they came in, prayed for you, and just tag it as a confirmed event update. If you need any help, just email heather@churchgrowthagency.com. It's actually super easy. Like it literally takes less than 30 seconds to do. It's not a big deal. I was just reading some Many Chat. They put some stuff out. And they made it sound really scary, but it really isn't. It's basically just to cut down on the amount of spam that a lot of businesses are going out there, where they just hit people up over and over and over and over, trying to sell them stuff and trying to get them to buy stuff. So to cut down on that, so we're fine. We're just responding to people that reached out to us and asked for prayer, right? So basically that was the event. Like they reached out to us, right? So the event update is we come in and say, hey, you reached out to us about a month ago, and had and sent us this prayer request. We just want to see how it's going, right? It's an event update from the very first time that they reached out to us.
So it's in the flows, right? In flows, and then it'll ask content type. For most, if you haven't changed it, it'll be undefined, or it'll still be asking what is the content type, and then it'll drop down box confirmed event update.
Yep. And then just click publish and you're good. Literally, you can fix both of those. Takes 30 seconds. You're good to go. So Many Chat said that Facebook's actually coming out with a new setting. We're going to research that, kind of figure it out. But it's basically where when people opt in, they can basically say, you can say like, hey, would you like us to follow up with you in the future to see how things are going? And then click yes. And then all of a sudden you don't have to worry about your flows, because those people have basically opted in to hear from you outside of the 24-hour window. Again, they're not trying to cut down on pastors praying for people. They're trying to cut down on businesses and spammy e-com places that are just trying to sell people a bunch of crap. So true.
Did you see Vandy's question?
No, let's see. The effective mandated replying 24 hours in every case. Wasn't that clear? So Vandy, basically what it is they're saying, like, if you didn't reach out to them within 24 hours, you wouldn't be able to reach out to them like after the 24-hour window. Right. So as long as you're responding, like we talk about it most weeks here, but what we recommend is if you can respond in time, great. Right. Like, just as those prayer requests come in, great. But what most pastors do is just to make it scalable so that you're not constantly just stopping what you're doing to go send the audio prayer, is just wait till the end of the day and then just send the audio prayer from everybody that has sent in a prayer request that day. Right. So, and again, on the plan your visits, you're actually getting all their contact info. You now got their name, email, and phone number. So you want to call them within 15 minutes. So that part is time sensitive. The sending the audio prayer is not time sensitive, as long as you do it within 24 hours. And again, we just recommend, hey, like that night, maybe after dinner or something, or before you go to bed, just sit down. If you got 10 prayer requests that day, right, 30 seconds per prayer request, just sending the audio prayer. It's only going to take you 5 or 10 minutes to do that. And that way it's easily scalable. And then you can also even start to build up a prayer team to kind of do this with you, or even do it for you once you've kind of learned how to do it, and then you can train them up, make it scalable. So the Autobot's not considered contact, but the audio prayer is correct. So when they first submit the prayer request, and it's going to kick off that auto sequence, that Autobot, right? That is communication, but it's doing it instantly as soon as they reach out. So yeah, like basically any type of communication, any type of message, whether it's manual or automated, outside of that 24-hour window, they're just going to say, hey, you can't do that unless they basically unless you've tagged those flows as an event update. So yes, you will not be able to send the audio prayer outside of the 24-hour window. So you just want to make sure to send the audio prayers. Like I said, typically we just say, hey, do it the same day if you can, but definitely within 24 hours. All right. Do we have any other questions here? Talked about Many Chat. We've had Wakefield has talked about, he literally just gave you a church growth plan for how to blow up your church. It's
in a good way.
In a good way. I'll tell you, here's how we'll do this. If anybody else, if you have more questions, throw them in the chat real quick. We'll end this by telling you guys about a Texas barbecue joint that we will literally never forget. Okay, so we just spent the last couple of days in a car driving back and forth to Dallas, and hanging out at a church planners conference down there, the CMN conference, which was awesome. Again, Ryan Wakefield is a big wig, so they asked him to come down there and do a breakout session, and he broke it. And so what happened was, not only did we have like seriously 1 million people coming up and telling about how Ryan's changed their life and CMU has grown their church and things are incredible. But we also had the opportunity. We were sitting there at the hotel. We're like, man, let's get some Texas barbecue. We're only here for one night. And so we did what everybody does, right? Like we Googled it, right? Like best Texas barbecue. And then we went on Yelp and we looked up all of the reviews, right? So if you guys aren't prioritizing reviews, right? Like you need to have online reviews about your church, Facebook, Google, and Yelp. Okay. And if you need help with that, reach out to Ryan Wakefield, because he's got you have an entire course on it, don't you? Inside of CMU. Okay. If you guys haven't invested in Church Marketing University right now, I'm telling you guys, one of the best investments you could ever make in your church. He literally covers everything. He covers things I've never even thought of. And then he's like an entire course on it, right? And that's one of them is just on your reviews. But we did what everybody else does. We Googled it. We went on Yelp. We looked at 15 or 20 different restaurants. We found one that had the best reviews. So we went there. It's like a little shack. And like we did everything. Like we went in there, we ordered what, or like, hey, what are you guys famous for? We ordered that. We ordered a bunch of sides. We did family style, put it all in the middle, just massive piles of meat. And we had the homemade barbecue sauce. A lady came in, it's like, hey, I heard it's your first time. Try the banana pudding, right? So we got the banana pudding. I mean, like we did like the owner like came out, we met him. We talked to him, we told him it was a great day. We joked with the wait staff. We signed the wall. Like our names are on there and everything. We will never forget that experience. But what was the name of it?
Couldn't remember.
We can't remember.
We told this in our breakout and they were like, oh, which barbecue place was it? And we looked at each other and we're like, I don't know the name. We have no clue what the name. And then on the way home, we were like, there's got to be a lesson in here for pastors. It's like, we all assume if we can get people to our Easter services, if they have a good experience, if they meet the pastor, if they sign the wall, right? Like that they're going to love it and that they're all going to be back. And the problem is if you don't get their, like that restaurant, they should have got our contact information. So they could have followed up. They could have got a review. They could have invited us back. They could have sent us a coupon 100%. For some more pudding, we would have come back. We would have driven like the 5 hours.
To go get some more banana pudding. But they could have even sent us an email, like one, and I love how your church does this, but like asking us how our experience was and get us rated. They could say, if they had said, hey, will you leave us a Google review? I would have done it. I'm like, yeah, we had a great time. We'd have given them 5 stars. Right. And if they had followed up with us to get, not only would they have gotten an online review, which is going to help them make more money and get more people in there, but like we also would have remembered the name. So then we could have told 200 people about it in the breakout session.
We told hundreds of people about this barbecue joint that we know not the name.
Yeah. And we cannot get them there because they didn't collect our contact information and follow up with us. And so the next time I go to Texas, I won't be going there because I have no idea how to find it again.
So there's a lesson in that.
There is a lesson in that. So that's one of the great things about Messenger is you are collecting people's information and have that like for broadcast stuff, especially if they plan their visit. Now you got name, email, and phone number, right? But use it. Actually follow up with them and see how they're doing and that kind of stuff, right? Ask visitors how their experience was. And again, you guys need help with that. Ryan Wakefield has an incredible course inside of CMU, and CMU itself is just is amazing. So Ryan, how can people connect with you?
We do have we have a few questions in chat. I thought you were there are a few.
Okay. First, tell people how they can connect with you, and then we'll hit these questions.
churchmarketinguniversity.com. You can go through like our boot camps. We have churchmarketinguniversity.com/Easter. Like we have an incredible Easter kit. Like we've literally invested over, I'd say $15,000 in building out everything a church needs. Like everything. There's over 50 downloads away in there, and we're just giving it away for free. So if you haven't checked that out,
I'm putting it in chat. It's churchmarketinguniversity.com/Easter.
Yep. You can check it out. Even if you're like, have some of your art directions set, you can use all the other downloads, follow-up downloads, email scripts. We even made a lyric video to Waymaker that you can use. There's all sorts. Like if a church said, hey, would you design bulletin? Yep. Would you design our social media? Yep. Would you make a countdown video? Yep. So like it's like a pizza buffet where church is like, hey, will you do this? We'll tell the cooks, it'll be out here. Like the Supreme Pizza is out. So like there's over 50 downloads now in there, but it's ridiculous. So that's a good way to check out some of what we're doing. And then So, and then, as you're reading that, like one tip on the reviews for you guys is like, if you have a growth track, like a 101, 201, 301, 401, something like that, in your growth track where you tell people like about how to partner with the church, how to start sharing their testimony, build in as a part of your outline, the ask for reviews. Like, would you go put your testimony on Google and leave us a review? And that way, like your church has 5-star reviews and testimonies of what God is doing coming in every single month. Really good. That is a game changer, not only for your reviews, but for your search engine optimization, because that's why Google ranks certain restaurants even higher, is because they're like, oh, that restaurant got 5 new reviews this month and they got 5 new reviews the next month. So don't go ask your church all at once to go leave your reviews on those places. Get a system so that every month in your 301 class, you have 3 new people leaving you reviews. And over the years, like I think we're close to 200 reviews now for Summit Park Church. And it's a game changer. And your SEO, man, you just start climbing to the rank because you have credible results for users in your community. So
that's huge. That's huge. Okay. So let's do this real quick. I know, Caleb, you have a 1:00 meeting.
It's a no-show.
Okay. Nope. So we'll talk for a few more minutes since we have a couple extra minutes, and then we'll tie a bow on this thing. So Justin wanted to know, what do we do when the message doesn't trigger the Autobot? Justin, we actually have a video on this. This is like in the FAQs. Basically what it is, it's because they didn't click. Facebook makes them opt in. So they have to actually click the button that says send message before they actually, and then it kicks off the autoresponder. It subscribes them to the bot and then says, okay, great. How can we pray for you? Then they submit their prayer request. If they don't read that, or they're not good at following directions, which happens every once in a while, and they don't click that button, then it won't, Facebook actually won't let ManyChat trigger that auto response. So it's just people that aren't paying attention or don't read the whole thing. If they just drop their prayer request inside of there, then it won't kick off the Autobot. So then you do it manually, right? It's not a big deal. It doesn't happen that often, but it will happen sometimes. People they immediately go in there, they don't read it, and they don't click the send prayer request button, so it doesn't automatically trigger those auto flows. So don't worry, it's not like the bot's broken or it's not delivering or something like that. It just means they didn't click that button, which didn't kick off the auto sequences. So you can just do it manually if that's the case. Okay, let's see. And we also had another one here. Let's see. Was it Josh up here? Yeah. Okay. Joshua Smith, how do you balance the not needing excellence, pushing the heavy way towards children without a good structure? It can be chaos. Joshua, what exactly do you mean by that? Like, how do you balance like not needing excellence, but also pushing the heavy way towards children without a good structure? If I understand the question correctly, like basically like, hey, like how do you balance kind of ready, fire, aim with also like doing excellence in kids ministry, right? And so if that's the question, I would say one of the best things that you need to do is really just trying things, right? But just prioritizing kids and really kind of putting them first and trying some things. So it just, we talked about on our live, like enemy is the excellence of innovation, right? Perfection is the enemy of progress. So things don't have to be perfect. Just try stuff, right? So like, if you're going to try like not everything has to be like literally like completely planned out, figured out. Just try some stuff sometimes, right? Like, like maybe try live streaming your kids ministry, like Ryan was talking about earlier about, right? Like live streaming it. It may not be perfect. It might just be like a webcam or something like that, right? So to me, like start before you're ready is the best way to do it, right? Ready, fire, aim. So maybe start live streaming that with your, with the camera, right? Or on Facebook Live or something like that, like, or excuse me, not a camera, but like your phone or something. And then eventually like you can kind of get there and you can start tweaking, optimize it, making it better, but just start before you're ready. Don't say, okay, we just need to go invest in like a $5,000 camera setup before we can start doing that with the kids. It's like, and then say, oh, excellence is the reason, right? That's just an excuse. Instead, just say, cool, somebody's got a smartphone, let's use it, right? And it's like, oh, maybe we don't have a streaming service that we can do it at the same time we got the grown-ups, but let's stream this live on Facebook, right? Or whatever it is. So, but just having that, because now if you have someone who's missing church, like while the adults can be live streaming your service, their kids can be live streaming your kids' service, and they don't have to miss a beat. Do you have anything to add, Ryan?
I would just say, I think it's as simple as a mindset shift to whatever you're doing and organizing for your entire church. Like, don't create 2 churches. Like, I feel like we got really bad at this in the late 90s and 2000. We created like, there's a kids church, there's a youth church, and then we wonder why they don't make the leap from that to our other church. So we created totally different churches. So like, why not look at it like for example, if you're doing a growth track for your adults, like how are kids and students involved in that? Like, they're not a separate deal. Like, do they need to understand about the church? Well, yeah. Like, so it's not a different church. It is, like, if it's good for, like, if that methodology is good for like helping adults understand what the church is all about, like, do kids and students need to know that? Okay, well, like, how do we just take that organization and just start thinking about it, not from a desktop first, but from a mobile first? Like, and if you're doing leadership development, like, well, yeah, we have leadership development, once a quarter, we have all the adults together and we develop leaders. Well, okay, well, goodness gracious, like, why are we not developing leadership in our kids areas, in our student areas? Like, we came up with a structure and we just excluded like half the church, and we call and like they have their own different deal. So I would just say, maybe go back to whatever you're putting organization into now and think through, could we start looking at this from a mobile first lens as opposed to a desktop first? And then just see if you can innovate around that and start allowing them to be a part of the life of the church as a young kid, and don't wait till they become an adult to do all the things that the adults do.
That's good.
Vandy wanted to know about the Autobot, if that is considered contact within the 24-hour.
Oh yeah, we talked about that earlier. Yes, it is. It is considered context. That's why the Autobots outside of the 24 hours won't trigger unless you go tag those as the confirmed event update. Let's see. Justin, excellence, just an excuse. Wow, needed that. Awesome. Joshua, I have more funding than volunteers. Okay, so that's something to work with. Let me. David asked a question here. Somebody said, launching a church in the area. It's about 45 minutes outside my area. Okay, awesome. Planting a church. Do plan on doing Facebook ministry as the future get close? Do you have a separate support for church plants versus established ministries? So good question, David. So we don't. We've got a great mix in here of established churches and church plants and that kind of stuff, right? Like, we've seen church plants use this. I think one of the most powerful things you can do to kind of prep your area is actually start Facebook ministry as in the area before the church actually plants. And the reason is, now they actually, like, you've built a relationship and you've invested in that relationship before you even have a church there, right? And that's going to speak volumes to people. It's also going to allow you to build up your messenger list, right? And your messenger list is kind of like an email list that lives inside of Facebook. So, if you have an email list with 1,000 people on it and you invite them out to your launch, right, then email open rates are 15%. So you have about 150 of those 1,000 that'll open it. But in your messenger list, it's 93% open rates. So if you build up 1,000 people in your messenger list and then invite them to your launch, 930 of them are going to open it, right? And every single one of them, you've taken the time to build a relationship through the prayer ads and through some of the follow-up sequences as well. So I would recommend, like, if you're 45 days out, like, I would start as fast as possible. I mean, I would start this week, because you only have 45 days to build that relationship with them, right? And to build up that messenger list. Then you can kind of keep that ongoing and inviting people out to church every single Sunday. But we could actually tweak the sequences to be inviting everybody out to the launch itself, if that was something you're interested in. So yeah, we got there's a bunch of art church plants in here. We actually had a couple of CMN guys reach out to me after the conference that want to jump in. So we've got church plants and we've got established churches. The bottom line is basically just getting out there, pastoring your city, building those relationships and that relationship equity with people in your church, and it's going to naturally overflow. When you focus on the ministry, it'll naturally overflow into Sunday morning visitors. Okay, cool. Let's see. Question for Ryan: is Church Marketing University offering church coaching or just social media platforms?
So Joshua, what we do is we basically take a tool. So a marketing tool could be Instagram, text message, email, your website, Facebook, what you name it. We have 30 different courses, and we essentially will say, if you want to use this tool, again, fill in the blank, to reach your community, we will give you a step-by-step course on how to do that either you can go through or you have complete team access and you can have a volunteer go through. A lot of mega churches use it as their personnel development, like team development. So they're all getting better. So we essentially do online courses to help you churches understand how to use that tool to reach into their community. So we do offer some group type coaching, but we're not in the space that Chris is doing, where he's actually getting in and actually doing it for you and actually helping you build it out. Like, we don't get into that. We're more just on the, how do we put together a course, and then allow your team to go through it. And we basically say, hey, we've got 30 courses. If you have somebody that's helping your church with the website, send them through the website course. If you have somebody that's helping your church with understand text message, like, send them through the text message course. Who's sending out email on behalf of your church? Does your church love getting email from the church? If not, like, send anybody, you just make a rule, like, anybody who's going to send out email on the behalf of the church, you need to go through the email course. So our people look forward to getting our emails, not, putting them in the junk folder. So that's what we're doing. Courses to help churches understand how to use that tool.
Love it. I'm telling you guys, I've been through it myself, and it's dope. Like, it's incredible. And Ryan has a beautiful blue wall behind his thing. In fact, everyone that we met, I think at the conference, kept commenting like, dude, it's so weird to see you without the blue wall. Right. Because that's where he does all of his videos and crushes it. So, all right, Caleb, will you pray for us? And then, man, let's get out of here and let everybody else get on with their day here.
Yeah. I think, should we do a blue wall? If he does one, don't you think we should?
No, I don't think we can compete with Ryan Wakefield, right? Like, he has already cornered the blue wall market.
Yeah.
That's a great point. I'm sorry for even bringing up the idea that we might challenge him with a blue wall. That's my bad.
Yeah, let's pray, man. Caleb, I think you're muted.
I was praying and the Spirit fell and you missed it. Thank you so much, Lord, for all the work that you're doing in these churches across the nation, across the world. Lord, thank you for Ryan and all the things, Lord, you've brought him, and you've equipped him with, that he is sharing with us, that we can learn from. Pray you continue to bless his ministry and help him reach more churches and help those churches reach more people, so that we can just continually add members to our family, Lord, like he said, so we can make heaven crowded as we possibly can. Lord, I pray for your protection on all of our families, staff, and Lord, the people that we're reaching out to. Lord, I pray that you would continue just to, as we're praying for them, as these churches are praying and doing ministry, Lord, that they would be able to enjoy the experience of your presence with them, and Lord, the testimonies of the people that you're transforming. We love you, Lord. We pray you glorified in our work, in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.